And so today we have Susan join our chat. So please introduce yourself, your academic background, and your current role.
Yeah, for sure. My name's Susan. I'm a principal data scientist at a company called Elastic. So it's a public company that does SaaS, software as a service, and I can introduce that more later. But I did my master's in economics at the University of Toronto, and I have a bachelor in also in economics from the University of Waterloo.
That's great. Yeah. So based on your roles and various experiences, I saw you have like a lot of experience as a data scientist. So what does a data scientist actually do? Like, how is it different from a data analyst?
Yeah, this is a very complicated question for sure. So, one way to answer this is that data scientists started out as a umbrella term for doing everything. So maybe 10 years ago, if you're a data scientist, you might be doing various things like training machine learning models, running experiments, or even deploying them. So requiring more software engineering skills. They could be doing all of that because the data was much smaller scale. But because everything software wise has started to gather more and more data, like let's say in the past, like few thousand rows would be considered a lot. Nowadays, it's petabytes and petabytes of data from all these devices and online platforms that we use. The role has been split out into a lot of different types of skills. I kind of wrote about this in actually a book that I'll talk about later, but the roles became much more specialized. So you need someone to train machine learning models. There'd be a dedicated role to write reports and dashboards. There's dedicated engineers to deploy the models. There's dedicated people to run the experiments, and all of those could still be called data scientists, but now there's new titles as well, like ML engineer, or as well as in the past, data analyst is specific to people who are creating dashboards. So they might like write some SQL queries, summarize some data. Let's say answer some questions like, this is a dashboard or a report that grabs the top 100 users of the last week, or kind of like, like watch the trend of the users or purchases that were made on our platform in the last week. So kind of that I would still say that's kind of similar to what data analysts are doing nowadays. But even nowadays, some data scientists are doing work that is also called data analyst as well. So it is a little bit confusing, and it really depends on the job description.
Yeah, that's true. I know a lot of people going to data analysts, but that thank you for the explanation. And so, with your background in economics, both undergraduate and a master's, what led you like to transition into a field with machine learning? I see like data scientists also kind of cover with machine learning as well. Also, you have a you wrote a book about machine learning, and so can you talk about it?
Yeah, definitely. So, um, like the way I got into it is because in econ we study a lot of econometrics. Like I know a lot of people are not a fan of it, but I took a lot of those courses and I did extremely well on them. So I kind of specialized in that area. So statistics, applied statistics, econometrics, and I think that took care of understanding how these models worked. I would say like the models that are traditionally taught in econ has some overlap with the ones that are traditionally taught in computer science, but there's definitely some that I had to learn. For example, the deep learning things, like I had to self-learn. But I think the fundamentals from econ were very solid to help me learn because they share the exact same fundamentals. And I think another skill that's required is programming. So I also self learned that. I was in Waterloo, and there was like a lot of people with that knowledge near me, and I was interested in making video games. So then I self learned Python, which later turned out to be really, really useful for a data science career. Actually, a friend of mine who also was part of the U of T master's program, he told me that there's this role called data scientist and that I should look it up because I was able to I had these skills in econometrics as well as programming, and I had not heard of it before. And after I looked it up, I thought, wow, this is such an interesting field that combines both these types of skills for me, and that's how I got started.
That's nice. Yeah. And so, talking about your book, so your book is about machine learning interviews. So, what inspired you to write a book about it?
Yeah, so I was getting a lot of questions from folks, how to get into data science and machine learning. I would consider them to be like umbrellas of each other. So I would say they're, I guess, like data scientists do a lot of machine learning, or the data scientists that are doing machine learning, and they were doing other things as well. But basically, like the core part of a lot of data scientists' job is machine learning. So, like, yeah, lots of people were asking, how do I get into the machine learning field and whatnot? And I answered so many of these questions, and I was able to get uh, like I was doing an online course as well for O'Reilly, which is the publisher for this book, and then they also asked if I would create a proposal for a book, and then they did later select my proposal to write on. So yeah, what led me to writing this was just like answered these questions over and over again, trying to help people out. I've done a lot of coffee chats with new grads and students. And I thought this is the best way to share that information with as many people as possible.
Yeah, that's right. I'll definitely read your book as well. I'm very curious about machine learning. Yeah, and also like we all noticed like over the past 2 years or a couple years, the field of generated AI and then broader AI industry, machine learning, deep learning has been like evolving rapidly. And then how do you, as a industry professionals, how do you stay updated with this industry trends?
Yeah, so I would say sometimes like friends or work. At work, we have channels where people are talking about the newest things that we're working on or building, or something that's just been released by like Google or Meta or OpenAI, but also on LinkedIn as well. Like I see, I have a lot of connections with people in the same field, and then they're going to be sharing the newest. And I think for folks who are new grads or students, like I think following those people in the field are probably the best way to get practical knowledge. Like I think because it's a field that's moving so much, so I think there's definitely like the research aspect of it too. But then I think for job uh, prospects, like the more important thing to see is how they are applied. Like not only understanding how they work theoretically, but like being able to answer the questions about like how you apply these things is going to be more important in job interviews if that's what someone cares about. Yeah.
Right, yeah. I believe you also mentioned in your books as well. My next question is like, what advice would you give to students who want to enter the field of generative AI or machine learning? Maybe some people who like you who don't have like those computer science or engineering backgrounds. What do you suggest this students?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think the one good thing is to just like take a look at what you already have, because I think definitely as a student in econ, it might be easy to think like, oh, I don't have all these skills and things like that. But actually, for it's the same for people who come from, let's say, computer science and they have never taken a statistics class. They also have to learn those skills that they don't have as well. So basically, like, look at what you already have and learn what you don't have. I think in econ students' case, it's more likely to be programming. But I see a lot of people taking like a computer science minor or electives as well. So I think that's a really good way to bridge that gap, or even just like, self learn on your own. You don't have to do like an actual course too, but just, yeah, like figure out what you don't have, what is the usual profile that's being hired, and I think it's someone who's knowledgeable at both, unless it's a specific role. Like I did mention that the roles are getting more and more specific these days, so that it depends on the company. Like the larger the company, the more specialized the roles are. The smaller the company or startup, the more likely you're going to have to do everything. So they want you to be able to either learn really fast everything, or you already know how to do a bit of everything. So it just, yeah, depends on what type of role you want. Learn the skills that you don't have based on the job descriptions.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a lot of times like self-learning. I feel self-learning is so important, like so many things that school has not taught you. And I try to self-learning some programming and I always failed completely. I don't have, how do you like suggest, for example, if I want to self-learning a programming, like I know Python is very helpful, like how to do those.
Yeah, so I think things like practical things, like actually the way I started was this book called Automate the Boring Things with Python. It's like a very beginner level book. But then because it's so practical, I think it has stuff like parse information from PDFs or kind of like sort documents and things like that. Like you can, instead of starting with all those like theoretical parts, like, oh, the computer works like this and like whatever, like bits and bytes and things like that, just like start with whatever you can see like tangibly. And I think there's also, I took some Coursera courses, like one or two at most, I think. I didn't complete them. I think I completed maybe one of them, and I'm sure I did not complete two of them at least. But I think I did enough to learn what I needed to learn. And I think as long as you're doing hands on, then you should be learning enough. Like, what I mean is that, like, there's people who get stuck, they're just reading. And as you can know with economics exams, until you actually start writing the practice problems, like, you're not probably going to do that well from just reading the textbook, right? So I think programming is the same. Like the sooner you can start building something practical and complete that, like that's going to be the best way. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be hands-on.
Yeah, that's a very good advice. Even for like some of my math course, like if I don't practice, I can't understand anything.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's great. So jumping to like finding jobs. So my podcast kind of like targeting with new grads, like who have trouble of finding their first job. And so my next question is like, did you find it challenging to land your first job, and then when you started your career?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But I was also lucky to be one of the earlier ones to receive a job offer. I think the situation, I don't know if it's so different between undergrad and grad, but I think everyone was trying to search for jobs like before graduating, right? Like in the last term, everyone's already, well, not everyone, but a lot of people who are serious, they're already applying for jobs. So I was also one of those, like I was writing a resume and I was applying for jobs. I was spending so much time applying to jobs instead of studying. And that's very challenging. So I think a challenge was that I didn't really think like I fit the bill. So I think you touched on something that's like, oh, with an econ major, like, well, employers kind of look down on it for such a technical programming role or something like that. But I do find that nowadays a lot of data science roles, even back then, they also mention econ majors or even psychology majors. Like, they might mention that in a list of several majors that they're looking to hire from, but it's often there. So I think people were kind of worried for, like, I was worried too for no reason. And I saw that some jobs, they literally say, oh, you can be a student in like CS or math, stats, and like sometimes they'll say like econ, like, often enough they'll say that. So I think it was not that they were not looking for it, but just like, yeah, it's definitely like lower on the list of the priorities. So I definitely felt like I needed to showcase that I had those technical skills, and I did that by, yeah, like doing some side projects like with Python and showing that on my resume. So I think I was able to identify the some sort of weakness in my profile and overcome that by demonstrating with real projects. So that really helped because in the interviews they would ask questions like, oh, like about Python or about my project in Python, and I was able to answer those questions quite well. So I think it's just, yeah, again, with the learn what you don't have, figure out what you don't have, and then try to acquire that, I think. And I think networking is also going to be really important because the first job that I got through a referral, which was from said friend that I mentioned that had started the master's in economics at U of T a few years before me. Like he had, yeah, been part of the program at one point, and he referred me to the company that he was working at. So that really helped out. But I still got interviews with non-referrals as well. So, but just be prepared to send out a lot of applications.
Yeah, that's right. I have some friends right now. They say, now I finished my final. I'm gonna apply 10 jobs every day.
Right, right. No, we were applying like when we were studying. We were a
Yeah.
lot of us, yeah, not all of us, but I think the ones who really wanted a job, like we were applying in our last term or even the term before. Um, I think one other thing that really helped specifically for U of T from U of T was we had a program. I forgot the title. Is like a program coordinator or something for the grad program, and like her name is Shannon. I don't think she's working at U of T anymore, but she put me in touch with a few alumni from the U of T economics program, and we're working in data science. So I was able to have coffee chats with two or three more of them, and that really helped me just like shape my resume about what they were looking for, some of the skills and technologies they mentioned when they were telling me about their work. I was able to learn that this is what they're looking for and this is what I should do. They didn't tell me exactly what I had to do. They didn't give me a roadmap because they were strangers, right? All they knew was that I was also a soon-to-be alumni, just like them. So they just shared, yeah, what they were working on, what they're doing, and some of the things they learned, and I just kind of had to put the pieces together myself. But I think, right, even someone listening to this podcast, like maybe some things will sound like things you're already doing, and maybe some things will sound like something you're not doing, and then every person's interpretation is going to be different. So you're just going to have to, each person will have to create their own roadmap based on this information.
Yeah, that's right. I also need to put the roadmap together. I really like your answer as well. Yeah, and then I'm curious, like, because right now you being in this industry for quite a while, maybe, and then how do you approach your career planning and a goal setting? Like, I mean, for most of us as a students, we're also like thinking about our career, and then for you already in this career, how do you set the goals?
Yeah, I think it's important for me to just like talk to people who are a few years of ahead of me. So I think that friend that I mentioned, he was also a few years ahead of me in the career. So then I kind of was able to pattern match. Like he's not the only example, right? But just like when I started working, there's people who have worked at the same company for like 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And then I just looked at them and thought about which ones I wanted to be like, and then I would like look at their LinkedIn profile to see like what they've done in the past, or even just straight up ask them like, oh, how did you get to work on this project, and how did you come to gain these skills? So I think learning a lot from the role models that I've seen at work or online or even at school, those were important to me to be able to set some goals in my career. And so I got promoted fairly quickly in my second job, and I think that's also because I had the goals in mind and like learning that this was something I'm interested in and kind of being verbal about it at work too. Because I think oftentimes, especially people who are first starting new jobs, like they're too shy to ask for anything. They're too shy to express that they're interested in growing more, again, getting more responsibilities. Too shy to, mention that they're interested in getting promoted or learning what steps it takes to get promoted, right? Because oftentimes it's not that you'll ask and you'll get a promotion, but rather the manager will say like, oh, you need to do this and this. Like, it'd be good if you had more experience leading a big project before we can promote you. But if you don't never mention it, sometimes they won't even tell you, and then you'll be too late, right? So I think just early on, I was just like expressing interest, like, oh, how do I move to the next step? Like, how do I get to the next level? The managers would say, these are the things we're looking for in our company, these leadership skills, and this is how you can demonstrate them. And that's how I kind of set my goals, which is to, yeah, like learn how to move to the next level and then try to achieve that in the long run.
Yeah, those are great advice. I think it's very practical for a lot of like even me to use those advice. I also watched a short video a few days ago. They said life is too short to be shy. you,
Yeah, true, true.
you
Yeah,
keep your
really.
mouth shut and not you can't get anything. Yeah. That's great. So I believe like during your year of graduation, as you said, you applied to many jobs. So I assume the market is also like very competitive. But also given the like current nowadays job market with the challenges in securing like the first jobs and then massive layoffs. Like I just know some of my friends, they just get a job and then got laid off. And then what strategies like would you recommend for securing a position, or like is there any other ways to develop a skills or like how to get the first job?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I do think that the market is a bit tougher now for sure. Um, let's see. So I think standing out is going to be important. So I think one issue I see, because after I started working, I started being one of the people to review resumes and to interview candidates as well. And I think a lot of candidates, they look really great on paper, but then all the projects they did were the same as everyone else's. So let's say, there's someone who's doing, it doesn't matter what kind of major they graduated from, like both CS majors, statistics majors, economics majors, they all have potentially this problem, which is their experience is all the same. So what I mean is maybe they took some course like some 101, like 201, 301, whatever, right? But like if they only have those projects, it's going to look the same as every other person who's ever taken the same course or a similar level of course. Or people who've taken online courses, they do those projects for many years. We'd have people who did the same, like uh, kind of like a meme these days, but it's like a beginner project online, like kind of like Titanic data set and like this like iris like flower data set for machine learning. Like we had dozens, hundreds, I'm not even exaggerating, like hundreds of resumes I've seen with these exact same projects, and they're not standing out like 5 years ago or nowadays. It's not really special. I think candidates who really stand out are those who they might have acquired like some sort of data set that they're more interested in. Like I think there's candidates who did like Pokemon classification or something like more interesting that feels like they did additional work to acquire the data and that it's not provided by an online course or provided by the university or something, because the data is like often clean when they give it to you for your assignment, or it's relatively clean. um, I think another good candidate example was, I think someone was applying to like a retail kind of company, because I guess like even retail, they have a lot of machine learning use cases as well, like kind of like prediction or like anomaly detections and recommender systems. Like they use all of those as well. And a candidate was building something that had to do with, I think, take a picture of like a fridge and then it would identify the products that were in the fridge, something like that. So, it's like probably not a super, I don't think they really invested super much time into it, but it was just relevant to like the industry and like very practical in terms of like what they were going for. So I think just something more like maybe something specific to the industries they're interested in. So if someone's interested in doing machine learning in finance, then they should maybe work on some more machine learning models and related to time series or prediction models or things like that for from a finance standpoint. So I think just putting in that effort helps candidates stand out, like whether it's 5 years ago or now.
Those are very helpful advice. Like not just from a mentality side, but like actually practical. How do you improve on the things you do? Yeah, yeah, that's great. And then my last question is about like, are there any other advice you would like to share or any wishes to the audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think like for industry that's really competitive, no matter what industry, but I mean, obviously, like AI and machine learning are very competitive nowadays because everyone, not everyone, a lot of people are interested. Um, it's very lucrative, which I understand. But just because everyone around you is saying do this, do that, doesn't mean you should do this and do that. I think the main problem is, I mean, I think especially for new grads, I think there's often like this group think, or they're kind of like, oh, like the perfect resume should look like this, and oh, I need to get a high GPA. Like I didn't have such a high GPA. It's more about like what you can show to the employers, like your practical skills. Like, yeah, it's great that you had like great, strong theoretical skills, but if you're applying for a industry job, not academia, then they don't care so much about. They care about the theoretical, yeah, a little bit, a bit. Like they care about it, but not so much as the students think. And I think a lot of the students I talk to, they get so influenced by their peers, but their peers are not the ones they should be getting the the most information from, right? Like they should be talking to people in the industry, or trying to get connected to alumni who did the thing, right? I don't think it's wrong to learn information from peers, of course. Like I learned a lot, but just like I found that the most useful thing was to find out what is really working and not speculation. And I think in high pressure schools, like I went to two of them, University of Waterloo, very competitive, very high pressure. And University of Toronto, obviously, it's super high pressure. All the peers are trying to like, everyone's a peacock, like, like I don't know, like it's very easy to get caught up with comparing those things that may or may not matter. Like you have to determine yourself and not be like a victim of just like kind of groupthink, or like, oh, like everyone's profiles are going to end up looking up like the same thing. Yeah, if you if students kind of end up being too influenced by their peers. Yeah, I know that's a bit blunt, but that's honestly something that I think I learned when I was looking for a job, which is like I did benefit from having that community, right? Like there's many people looking for a job, and it actually motivated me because everyone's like working so hard updating their resume and like interviewing, right? Like it inspired me to work harder. But just like if I only listened to their advice, I don't think I would have a job, right? So that's basically what I'm trying to say, which is, seek some information that's on the practical side or in the industry, and yeah, don't get stuck like with only what your peers are doing, and peer pressure as well, especially in schools like those two. Yeah, not to name names, but that's my personal experience.
That's great. Yeah, that's actually all my questions. I think your advice is very helpful. Like, I'll definitely notes and then start to think about my practical areas. And so that's all my question. And thank you so much